In a small, quiet neighborhood, nestled between the hustle and bustle of a city that never truly slowed down, lived two young twins, Liam and Emma. The world around them was simple, unpretentious, and filled with love. Their home, modest but warm, was a place of laughter and comfort. The twins' lives were defined not by wealth or material things, but by their close-knit family and the love they shared. Every morning, they woke up to the sound of birds chirping outside their window, the sun streaming in through the curtains, and the smell of their mother's cooking filling the air. It was the kind of home where nothing else mattered except for each other. Liam and Emma's world was made of simple joys. They didn't have the latest gadgets, the trendiest clothes, or expensive toys like some of their friends, but what they had was something far more valuable, a bond that was unbreakable. The twins had grown up together, sharing every little detail of their lives. From the time they took their first steps to the moments they learned to ride their bikes, they were always side by side, supporting each other every step of the way. Their mother, Sarah, was the glue that held the family together. She was a woman of great strength and resilience. She worked hard every day to make ends meet. Though life wasn't always easy for her, she never let it show. Sarah had a way of making everything feel right. She did everything she could to keep a smile on her children's faces, even if it meant sacrificing her own happiness. For Liam and Emma, she was not just a mother, but their hero, the person who made their world a safe, happy place. The twins spent most of their days in the yard, playing with whatever they could find. They didn't have the latest toys, but their imaginations turned even the simplest things into treasures. One of their favorite things was a small toy car, a bright red model of a Mercedes that they had saved up for months to buy. It wasn't the most expensive toy, but to them, it was priceless. It was their treasure, something that brought them joy every time they played with it. The car was special to them because it represented all the hard work and love that had gone into getting it. Every evening, after a long day of playing and helping their mother with small chores around the house, the twins would sit together in the living room, watching TV or reading books. They loved stories, especially ones about adventure and heroism. They would often pretend to be the heroes in these stories, saving the day and making everything better. They had big dreams for the future, even though they knew that their reality was different from the fairy tales they read. They were okay with it, though, because as long as they had each other and their mother, they knew they were rich in the ways that mattered. Despite their simple life, Liam and Emma never felt poor. They had each other, and they had love, the most important things in the world. They didn't care about material wealth, and they didn't need anything more than what they had. Their happiness came from the little things, playing together, laughing over silly jokes, and being with their mother. To them, the world was a beautiful place, full of endless possibilities. On weekends, they would often visit the nearby park, where they would play on the swings, run around the open fields, and make up stories about the people they met. There was a particular tree in the park that they loved. It was old and gnarled, but to the twins, it was a magical tree. They believed that it held the power to grant wishes, so every time they passed by, they would whisper their hopes and dreams to it, hoping that one day they would come true. Liam and Emma were the epitome of innocence. They saw the world through the eyes of children, unclouded by the worries and troubles that adults often face. They believed in the goodness of people and the magic of life. Their simple, carefree existence was the perfect representation of childhood. They didn't know it yet, but their world was about to change in ways they could never have imagined. Life had a way of throwing challenges at them, but for now, they were content in their bubble of love, happiness, and innocence. Their world may have been simple, but it was full of meaning. Every day, every moment spent together, was a treasure they held dear. Liam and Emma had everything they needed, even if it wasn't much. They had their mother's love, each other, and their small toy car, a symbol of their shared dreams. They didn't need anything else to feel whole. Little did they know, This simple life was about to face a test that would change everything forever. As the days passed, the world around Liam and Emma slowly began to shift. It started with their mother, Sarah, complaining about feeling tired all the time. At first, they didn't think much of it. Sarah had always worked hard, balancing multiple jobs to make sure they had food on the table and clothes to wear. She was a fighter. Nothing seemed to faze her. But this time, her tiredness wasn't the usual exhaustion. She seemed different. She would sit down more often, her face pale, her movements slower than usual. The once energetic mother who used to chase them around the house and lift them onto her shoulders now struggled to even stand for long periods of time. One evening, after a long day of work, Sarah collapsed in the living room. Liam and Emma rushed to her side, panic rising in their chests as they saw their mother's face pale with pain. They tried to wake her up, but she was unresponsive. Tears filled their eyes as they shook her, calling her name desperately. It wasn't long before an ambulance arrived, and Sarah was rushed to the hospital. The twins, confused and scared, sat in the waiting room with their heads down, holding hands tightly. The nurse had told them that their mother was critically ill, but they didn't understand what that meant. All they knew was that she was sick, and they didn't know how to help her. The diagnosis came the next day. Sarah had a severe illness that required expensive treatment and ongoing care. The doctors were hopeful, but they couldn't guarantee anything. The medical bills piled up quickly, far more than Sarah could afford on her own. The twins listened in silence as Sarah, with tears in her eyes, explained that she might not be able to pay for the treatment. She didn't want them to worry, but the burden of not being able to provide for her children weighed heavily on her heart. Liam and Emma could sense the shift in the air, the tension that had settled over their family. Their mother, who had always been their rock, was now the one who needed saving. They saw the strain in her face, the way her shoulders slumped as she tried to put on a brave face for them. They knew their mother was struggling, but they didn't know what they could do to help her. They were just kids, after all. What could they possibly offer in the face of something so big, so frightening? It wasn't long before the twins realized the enormity of the situation. There were no easy solutions. The family didn't have the money for Sarah's treatment, and they couldn't borrow more from anyone. They had already borrowed so much in the past. The small savings they had saved over the years were quickly running out, and there seemed to be no way forward. They were caught in a trap, and Sarah was at the center of it. The twins sat together in their room one evening, staring out the window at the setting sun. Their minds were filled with worry, and their hearts ached for their mother. They wished they could do something, anything, to help, but they didn't know where to start. That's when it hit them. Liam and Emma glanced at each other, a silent understanding passing between them. They knew what they had to do. It was simple. They had a toy car, nothing more than a small red Mercedes model. It had been their pride and joy for years, a symbol of the love and dreams they shared. But now, it could be their only hope. "Let's sell it," Liam said quietly, his voice trembling. Emma, too, was silent for a moment, her eyes wide. "For Mom." Liam nodded, his face determined. "We'll sell the car. Maybe we can raise enough money for her medicine. Maybe it will help." They both knew that selling the toy car meant letting go of something precious, something they had held onto for so long. It wasn't just a toy to them. It represented their childhood, their bond, and all the moments they had spent together, playing and dreaming. But as they looked at their mother in the hospital, the choice became clear. If there was any way to help her, they would do whatever it took. The next morning, after their mother had fallen asleep from the medication, the twins took the car out of their room. They sat on the porch with it between them, looking at it in silence. It seemed so small now, so insignificant in the face of their mother's struggle. But they knew that sometimes even the smallest things could make the biggest difference. They made a simple sign, written in crayon, that read $20 for SALE, and placed it next to the toy car on the sidewalk. They didn't know who would buy it or if anyone would even stop. But they hoped, more than anything, that someone would see their little sacrifice and understand the love behind it. As they sat there, waiting, their hearts pounded. Would this be enough? Would this really make a difference? They couldn't know for sure, but they had to try. And with that, they made a decision that would forever change their lives and their family's future. In that moment, Liam and Emma were no longer just children. They were the heroes of their own story, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, all for the love of their mother. They were about to learn a powerful lesson. Sometimes, the greatest acts of love come from the most unexpected places. The sun had begun to set, casting a warm orange glow over the street as Liam and Emma sat quietly, their eyes fixed on the small red toy car before them. The sign they had made, $20 for SALE, hung limply in the cool breeze. It was a simple sign, but it carried all the weight of their hopes and fears. They sat there, side by side, waiting for someone, anyone, to stop and see their plea. In their hearts, they clung to the hope that this small act of sacrifice could somehow help save their mother. The minutes passed, but no one seemed to take notice. As they waited, a car pulled up to the curb. It was a sleek, black luxury sedan, the kind that seemed out of place in their humble neighborhood. A man stepped out of the car, adjusting his suit and fixing his tie. His presence was imposing, yet somehow calm. He was the picture of success. Well-groomed, confident, and unmistakably wealthy. This was a man who had everything, or so it seemed. He took a few steps towards the sidewalk, where Liam and Emma were sitting. His eyes landed on the sign, and then, without a word, he looked down at the toy car. "Why are you selling it?" he asked, his voice soft but filled with curiosity. Liam and Emma exchanged a quick glance before Liam spoke up, his voice trembling with both hope and fear. "We're selling it to buy medicine for our mom. She's really sick, and we don't have enough money for her treatment. We thought, maybe this could help." The man paused, his gaze softening as he crouched down to their level. He studied them for a moment, as if trying to understand the weight of their words. The twins looked up at him, their faces a mix of determination and vulnerability. The toy car, once a symbol of their childhood joy, now sat before them, representing something much more important, a lifeline for their mother. "Your mother must be very special to you," the man said, his tone warm but laced with an emotion the twins couldn't quite place. "How much are you asking for it?" $20, Emma replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "That's all we need, just enough to buy the medicine she needs." The man looked at the car, and then back at the twins. He could see the sincerity in their eyes, the pure love and desperation that drove them to take such an extraordinary step. He couldn't help but be moved by their selflessness. Most children would never consider giving up something they cherished so dearly. But these twins, despite their own struggles, had chosen to give up their most prized possession for the chance to help their mother. He paused again, thinking for a moment. "Tell me, how long has she been sick?" Liam and Emma exchanged another look before Liam spoke up. "She's been sick for a while, but it's getting worse now. The doctors say she needs special treatment, but we don't have enough money. She doesn't want us to worry, but we can't just sit here and do nothing." The man's face softened even more. He could see the love the twins had for their mother, the willingness to do anything, no matter how small, to make her better. It reminded him of the love he had for his own family, a love that sometimes felt lost in the fast-paced, competitive world he lived in. He couldn't help but feel a deep sense of responsibility towards these children, who had so little but were willing to give so much. "You're very brave," the man said, his voice full of admiration. "But I think I can help you in a way that doesn't involve selling your toy car." Liam and Emma looked at him, confused. What did he mean? They hadn't expected this. The man, seeing their puzzled expressions, stood up and took a step back. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a business card. "My name is Charles Weston. I run a company that helps people like you, people who are willing to fight for what matters most. I can cover your mother's medical expenses, all of them, and I can help in ways you can't even imagine." The twins' eyes widened in disbelief. "You'll help us?" Emma asked, her voice full of wonder. "But why?" Charles smiled softly. "Because what you're doing is something I admire. You're not just asking for help. You're doing what you can, no matter the cost. That's the kind of heart I respect. And I want to make sure your mother gets the treatment she needs." Liam and Emma could hardly believe what they were hearing. For a moment, it felt like a dream, too good to be true. But something in Charles' eyes told them that this was real. This man, with all his wealth and power, was offering to help them when they had nothing left. They had expected a simple transaction, a small amount of money for their beloved. The next few days felt like a blur. Liam and Emma could hardly believe what had happened. After Charles Weston, the Millionaire CEO, had given them his business card and promised to help their mother, they were left in a state of shock. They had hoped for a miracle, but never in their wildest dreams had they imagined that someone would step forward in such a way. The twins couldn't stop thinking about the man's words, his kindness, and how his offer had completely turned their world upside down. They had started their journey by selling their toy car, thinking it was their only chance to help their mom. Now, they found themselves on the receiving end of an unexpected blessing, one that would change their lives forever. The twins rushed to the hospital the following day, the business card Charles had given them clutched tightly in Liam's hand. They felt a nervous excitement bubbling inside them, unsure of what would happen next. When they arrived, the receptionist took one look at the card and ushered them inside. They were led straight to the doctor, who greeted them with a friendly smile but a serious expression. "I've heard about your situation," the doctor said, taking the card from Liam. "Mr. Weston has already contacted us. We've arranged for your mother's treatment to be covered in full. She will be receiving the best care possible." The twins couldn't believe it. It was as if a huge weight had been lifted from their shoulders. Their mother, Sarah, who had been fighting for her life, was now going to get the help she desperately needed. Liam and Emma exchanged a look of disbelief and relief. For the first time in weeks, they felt a sense of peace wash over them. They knew that their mom would be okay, and that was all that mattered. It wasn't long before Sarah woke up to find her children sitting by her side, their faces glowing with happiness. She had been in and out of consciousness for days, too weak to understand the full extent of what was happening. But when the doctor came in to check on her and explained that her treatment had been fully covered, her eyes widened in surprise. "How is this possible?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Someone helped us," Emma said softly, her eyes shining with tears. "A man named Charles Weston. He's a Millionaire CEO, and he heard about what we were doing. He saw us selling the toy car and decided to help us. He's paying for all your treatment." Sarah's face softened with emotion as she listened to their story. She had always prided herself on being strong and independent, but the truth was, she had never felt more vulnerable than she did in that moment. The weight of the medical bills, the uncertainty about the future, and the fear of losing everything had been overwhelming. But now, thanks to the kindness of a stranger, her world had changed. She no longer had to worry about the cost of her treatment. Her children had been able to save her, not by selling their beloved toy car, but by showing the world the power of love and sacrifice. Over the next few weeks, Sarah's health improved significantly. The treatment was working, and she began to regain her strength. The twins spent every moment they could with her, helping her with daily tasks and keeping her company. They were overjoyed to see her smile again, to hear her laughter echo through the house as it once had. Their lives were beginning to feel normal once more, but this time it was different. They had learned something valuable during their journey, that love, sacrifice, and kindness had the power to bring about change, even in the most difficult circumstances. Charles Weston, though they never saw him again, had left an indelible mark on their lives. The twins often thought about him and wondered what had driven him to help them. To them, he was more than just a millionaire. He was a symbol of hope, someone who showed them that no matter how small or insignificant they might feel, their actions could make a difference. He had believed in them when they didn't have much to offer. He had seen the love and selflessness in their hearts and had chosen to be part of their story. It was a gesture they would never forget. As the months passed, the twins began to thrive again. Sarah returned to her normal routine, slowly but surely, and their family was stronger than ever. The toy car, the one they had almost sold, now sat proudly on the shelf, a reminder of the journey they had been through. It was no longer just a toy. It represented the love, hope, and courage that had carried them through the toughest moments of their lives. One day, as they sat together in the living room, Sarah turned to the twins with a smile. "I want you to know something," she said, her voice full of emotion. "What you did for me, what you were willing to give up, was the most selfless act I've ever seen. I am so proud of you both. You've taught me something important. True wealth isn't measured by money. It's measured by the love and kindness we show others, and I will be forever grateful for the gift you've given me." The twins smiled, their hearts full. They had learned that sometimes the greatest rewards come not from what you receive, but from what you're willing to give. And in the end, it wasn't just about saving their mother. It was about learning the true meaning of family, love, and sacrifice. Their lives had indeed changed, but it was not just because of the money or the treatment. It was because they had learned that the most valuable thing in the world was the bond they shared and the love they gave each other. And with that love, they could overcome anything.